magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
It doesn't take a magic mirror to know that the Walt Disney Studio has brought us some of our most treasured film memories. That Disney legacy owes its very existence to a little princess. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs set a standard by which all animated feature films are still judged, and was a major stepping stone on Walt Disney's path to becoming Hollywood's greatest producer of family entertainment. Walt Disney risked his personal fortune and gambled the future of his studio to create Hollywood's first full-length animated feature film. It was the turning point in his career and is today considered one of the most important films in cinema history. Welcome to the behind-the-scenes story of the merriest and scariest Disney feature-length masterpiece. The one that started it all, and still the fairest of them all. Behind the success of Snow White was the visionary who brought her to life. Walt Disney was a unique American genius, a great storyteller, artist, and innovator. Born in Chicago in 1901, his early career as a cartoonist was interrupted by the First World War. In 1923, Walt joined with his brother Roy and entered the infant animation industry. In those days, a feature film was preceded by trailers, newsreels, live-action short subjects, and a cartoon. While Walt Disney may be best remembered for the creation of Mickey Mouse, the world's most recognizable movie star, his early accomplishments are equally impressive. Before Mickey, Walt had produced a popular series called the Alice Comedies, which were silent cartoons featuring a live-action little girl in an animated world. In 1928, Disney introduced the very first sound cartoon, the landmark film that launched the career of Mickey Mouse. And in 1932, Disney premiered the first cartoon in full color. For his advancements in the field of animation, Disney had won 4 Academy Awards by 1934. But despite the phenomenal success of Mickey Mouse and the animated shorts, Walt realized that only feature films would generate the kind of income that would allow his studio to grow.
I saw the handwriting on the walls early, because as a short subject, it was just a filler on any program. I just felt I just had to diversify my business. Now, if I could crack the feature field, I could do things.
In the spring of 1934, Walt finally decided on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was a revolutionary idea. No one in Hollywood had ever attempted to tell a full-length story in animation before. The story of Snow White goes back to the 1812 Grimm Brothers collection of fairy tales, and even the earliest filmmakers had capitalized on the familiarity of the tale. This silent version is a film that Walt saw in 1916.
It's the thing I remembered as a kid. I saw Marguerite Clark in it in Kansas City one time when I was a newsboy. They had a big showing for all the newsboys, and I went and saw Snow White. It's probably one of my first big feature pictures I'd ever seen.
Nearly 20 years after seeing that Snow White, Walt was well established, producing cartoons in his own Hollywood studio, employing hundreds of people. One night in 1934, he gathered his key artists together to unveil his plans.
He gave us 50 cents apiece, which was a lot of money, the equivalent of at least $10 now, to have a nice dinner and to come back to the studio where he related by himself the whole Snow White story. He acted all the parts. He even indicated the songs. He had the characters. Everything in this Snow White picture was completely developed in his own mind.
From the moment that Disney announced that he was working on a feature picture, people in the business thought, he's got to be out of his mind. So it became known as Disney's Folly.
We were told by all the big movie moguls in Hollywood that people just wouldn't sit still for an hour and a half of cartoons because the bright colors would hurt your eyes. Everybody get up and walk out of And other people said, you're going to have gags all the way, and people get tired of it. Well, Walt was a better storyteller in that. He realized you had to have the pathos, the love scene, and the gags, and the chase, and all of the regular things that make a good picture.
Anyway, to me, I thought it was a perfect story. I had the heavy. I had the prince.
Hello. Did I frighten you?
I had the girl, the romance.
Wait, please. Don't run away.
I had the sympathetic dwarf.
Jiminy crickets. Any film, a short or a feature, begins with the mind of the artist, the ideas, and they have to become manifest in drawings. And the first drawings are concepts, or as they call them at Disney, inspirational sketches. And these can go anywhere, and the artists are free to just let their imaginations roam. The next stage starts to pin down that story, and the way they do it, and it was originated at the Disney studio, was to use the storyboard. It's a cork board in which individual sequential sketches are pinned up and looked at by the artists. And this is a wonderful, fluid way to see the whole sequence before you and to be able to change it immediately and to move it around on the board and to sort of see if the narrative is flowing and see if the characters are developing in the way that you think they should.
The storyboard phase is the best place for ideas to be suggested, embellished, replaced, or sometimes deleted.
Someday My Prince Will Come was originally going to have this amazing dream sequence to go along with it, and Walt realized that he didn't need to interfere with the simple storytelling that Snow White was telling the dwarfs. It was more important to get their reactions to her conveying this wish than it was for her to imagine and for the artist to visualize her dream.
As interesting as this idea may have been, it was changed because it did not add to the story, and the studio was still having difficulty animating the prince.
One of the toughest things you'll ever do is a human. The toughest thing you'll ever do is a male human.
The poor prince was not coming off too well. And early in the game, the prince was actually going to do quite a bit more than he did. But all of that was abandoned because they realized that animating the prince was not going to make it. So he kept being scaled back, scaled back.
During the storyboard period, humor was also woven into the story. The Disney animators were proven masters of physical humor, and Walt encouraged their genius in a number of ways.
They would pay you for a gag. If it was a good gag, you got $5, which is like getting 50 or 100 today. And I remember I sold a couple. When the dwarfs come into the bedroom and they sneak up and they peer over the top of the bed, and then as they come up, their noses pop over the top, one at a time. Boop, 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 boop. And that was my gag, $5 worth.
At the same time that the story was taking shape, other artists worked on developing how the characters would look and act.
Well, one of the greatest challenges in making this film was the depiction of the human characters. The dwarfs were not that much of a problem because they were really caricatured to a great deal and they could be stretched and squashed. But the problem with the humans was that they couldn't. They had to be believable.
Now, the Queen, talk about an evolution. The Queen in some of those early sketches, she looks rather dowdy and frumpy and so forth, and suddenly she evolves into an entirely different character. She's beautiful, yet there's a coldness.
You know the penalty if you fail.
In the beginning, in 1934, when they started to design these characters, they looked like Silly Symphonies characters. A lot of them were comic.
The early designs refined as they grew more used to this sort of European illustrative look for the characters.
The witch, the whole design is much more geared toward a realistic approach, toward evil, toward menace. They were trying to pull out all the stops and convince you that these characters were real.
Hear me burn alive.
They kept the fun cartoon style a little bit more for the dwarfs.
The great thing about the dwarfs in Snow White is that they are definite individual characters with special personalities.
Dwarfs' names fit their personalities. This pompous-looking individual is Doc, the self-appointed leader of the group. And this little fellow is bashful. He's secretly in love with Snow White.
This funny face is Sneezy. He has hay fever. And old droopy eyes is called Sleepy. And Happy here with the beaming smile. And old Sourpuss here is Grumpy, the woman hater. And last but not least is Dopey. He's nice, but sort of silly.
When it came time to design the Snow White character, each of the animators had his own unique vision of the girl.
Snow White was a major problem. I mean, they started out with drawings that were quite caricatured. Some of them looked like Betty Boop, some of them looked like Zazu Pitts. There was a great range of cartoony heroines, but eventually the drawing became, again, more naturalistic, and this was due to the fine draftsmen that they brought into the studio.
I'm Snow White.
Snow White, the princess?
Well, it opened, of course, with a storybook, and it clearly set a tone for the artist and the look of the thing in general. That has been maybe the most basic look of Disney films almost forever.
Walt went to the Gustav Tengrens, the Albert Herders, some of the great stylists of European storybook illustration to at least help him get started and help him develop a style that was at least going to be familiar to the audience.
I think it's because of these European artists that the movie started to get that feel. It's in all those details, the carvings in the cottage, the trees were drawn and painted in the forest. Yeah, it does have a very European storybook feel.
From the outset, Walt understood the importance of combining music and songs with the story. In animation, the music and dialogue have to be planned and recorded before drawing can begin. For months, animators and composers worked together so that the music and action were perfectly synchronized. Some 25 songs were written before Walt settled on the 8 finally used in the film. Originally, the dwarfs were to entertain Snow White by singing "You're Never Too Old to Be Young." It was ultimately replaced by the Silly Song. Here is an original temporary music track illustrated with storyboards.
You're never too old to be young. You're never too old to be young. Your voice may crack when you try to sing, but you can't be good at everything. You're never too old to be young.
As the studio geared up for Snow White, the Silly Symphonies were used as a testing ground for techniques that elevated Disney animation to even greater artistic levels. They experimented with dwarf and witch characters, perfected realistic animation of nature and animals, and tried out some of the elaborate special effects that would be required for Snow White.
Building up to Snow White, there were films like The Old Mill, where you kind of played with multiplane animation, or The Goddess of Spring, which was a short where they were trying to play around with human animation.
But if you look at The Goddess of Spring and look at Snow White, which came out at the end of '37, we're talking about 3 years. It looks like 20 years of development. It's hard to believe that only 3 years separated those pictures.
The first thing I did when I got a little money to experiment, I put all my artists back in school. Now, we were dealing in motion, movement, and the flow of movement, the flow of things, you know, action, reaction, all of that. So we had to set up our own school.
Animators analyzed in minute detail every nuance of human movement.
Take a look at his legs and feet. Notice the follow-through on the pant legs? How they come down late every time, after the feet come down.
And Walt filmed actresses and actors in live action as studies for the animators to be able to really hone in and get their characters to move as real people would move.
Three-dimensional models of characters and even some of the sets were also created as design reference and to ensure realism. No detail escaped scrupulous study. These effects tests, for example, illustrate how the animators experimented with the amount of light given off by Snow White's candle, as well as how the shadows should fall. Now the Snow White performers took the stage, the animators.
The animation is so refined. Again, this is all new. Before that, animation was a lot of squash and stretch and was very, very physical and outgoing. And here you have something that reflects very subtle emotions that were real.
And the animators had to believe in these characters as well.
Here you can bring this character to life. Well, these are just frozen on the paper. To me, that was wonderful. Right from the start, you could begin to see how Walt was getting these little personality touches in the characters which would express how they felt. Whether it was a little shrug or an embarrassed smile or whatever it was, it began to tell you what the inner feelings of that character were.
As Disney's team of animators worked, they began to realize that their characters had become something more to them than lines on paper.
And there's a story meeting where they're discussing Snow White's flight through the forest, where she's running and she falls. And they're talking about how far the fall would be. And one of the artists said, "But wouldn't a fall like that kill her?" And there was silence. And they suddenly realized they were worried about killing a cartoon character.
Before the animators went through the time-consuming and expensive process of full color, each sequence of pencil drawings was filmed, then projected in this rough form so the quality of the animation might be quickly and easily reviewed. Usually, in order to save money, they would not make a print, but would simply project a negative. These tests were then edited into the film to allow Walt to follow the flow of the story. Despite all the effort, not every sequence that was animated made it onto the screen. This sequence, where the dwarfs build a bed for Snow White, while Dopey collects stuffing for her mattress, was begun but never completed.
And there was a soup-eating sequence that was all set to music and was all perfectly animated. And in fact, Walt showed it on his television show in the 1950s.
You see, even though we liked the sequence, it was not essential to the telling of the story.
With a spoon, with a bowl, with the music in your soul. You can cheer things up with the zup, zup, zup of the music in your soup.
Always the master storyteller, Walt now concentrated on the pacing of the story, shortening sequences that felt too long, tightening the editing, and smoothing out the overall flow.
Even as the film was winding down, there was a lot of fine-tuning on Walt's part. He kept cutting little bits here and whole sequences there. There was Snow White's run through the forest. It was much more extended than what you see on the screen today. There was apparently more music to the dwarfs marching home, and that was pared down. There was a fight between Grumpy and Doc in the bedroom sequence, and that was all animated, and that was cut out.
I say that she goes. I say she stays.
The sequence of the witch at the cauldron, and that was cut down a little bit more.
Boil, cauldron, boil. Boil, cauldron, boil. Death within your depths I see, no one who dares to rival me.
We had a big premiere, the Carthay Circle Theater, big, grand Hollywood premiere. All of Hollywood brass turned out for a cartoon.
And now here's a gentleman that I'm sure you'll all want to meet. It's Walt Disney, the creator of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And he's just arrived. Mr. Disney, will you come up, please? Are you going in to watch the preview yourself now, Walt?
Yes, and have my wife hold my hand.
All right, good luck to you.
And I'm sure that poor Walt must have been absolutely, talk about on the edge of your seat. And of course, it was a standing ovation. People were not only joyful, but they were touched.
To see those dwarfs come up to this bier and take off their hats and get down on their knees and then back away, everybody in that theater was crying. I heard the sobs. I couldn't believe it. It's supposed to be just a cartoon. Everybody's crying.
For 87 minutes, the glamorous guests laughed and cried, and as the picture came to an end, rose to their feet to cheer and applaud. Disney's greatest folly had become his greatest triumph.
There's nothing like it today. We can't go to the films and see something that's as unique to us and to our eye as Snow White must have been to audiences back then.
Most of the public forgets, couldn't know, they weren't there. that Snow White was as big a hit as Star Wars was, as Indiana Jones, those kinds of movies, you know, just through the roof kind of movie.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs became so popular that it was dubbed into more than 20 languages.
Oi, kuinka unohdin. Olen lumikki.
Lumikki? Prinsessa?
Kyllä. Oh, entschuldigt bitte. Ich bin Schneewittchen.
Schneewittchen, die Prinzessin?
Ja.
Oh, perdónenme. Soy Blancanieves.
Blancanieves, princesa?
Sí.
Disney's preparation of the film for international release was a first for its time. Custom art was created for practically every country, including these sequences featuring the dwarfs' translated names.
We had a heck of a time getting enough money to finish Snow White. 6 months later, we were sitting with all of our debts paid off with at least a couple $1 million in the bank. With the profits of Snow White, I built a studio.
I'm not sure when the first plans were drawn up for this lot that we're on now, which is over the hill from the Hyperion lot where Snow White was made, but we wouldn't be sitting here, certainly, you know, and physically where we are now, had it not been for Snow White.
When Walt Disney was once asked to explain the secret of Snow White's phenomenal appeal, he replied,
"Over at our place, we're sure of just one thing. Everybody in the world was once a child. So in planning a new picture, we don't think of grown-ups and we don't think of children, but just of that fine, clean, unspoiled spot down deep in every one of us that maybe the world has made us forget and that maybe our pictures can help recall."